Okay, I'm going to walk through activity 5.2b. This is part 6, Roman numeral 6, generating a structural angle part as described below. And here's a picture of what I've ended up with at the end. So to begin this, let's open a new part file. Start a two-dimensional sketch. And on page 8 of the activity, we can see an L-shaped sketch. Only 2 dimensions have been given. Move my origin down to the left. I'm going to use the line tool from the way this seems to have been constructed. And we're going to make a vertical segment that is 1.5. So I click on the segment, I pull up, I make sure I have a vertical constraint, I let go of the mouse, and I type 1.5 and hit the Enter key. I'm not using my mouse to click to end the segment. Okay, next I go ahead and make a segment from that last endpoint. I try to make sure I have a horizontal constraint, or in this case a perpendicular to the original, which perpendicular to vertical will be horizontal. You see the 90 degrees. You also see the perpendicular symbol appear next to the last segment. Not using my mouse now. I'm going to type in my dimensional constraint of 0.5 and hit Enter. The rest of the segments, I really just need to make sure I have right angles. So I get a perpendicular constraint to the previous, click, perpendicular to the previous, click, perpendicular to the previous. And I am going to move this down to where it lines up with the corner, horizontally, click, and back here. And click. Right click, say OK. And now I'm going to use the geometric constraint of equal. I can see on the sketch that these two interior segments are constrained to being equal. And I see that the two outer L's are constrained to being equal. I right click and say OK. So here's our sketch. I'm going to hit E as a shortcut to finish sketch and extrude. And we're going to extrude to a distance of 1.5. We're going to save our file. I'm going to navigate to the appropriate place to save my file, which it should be. Let's see, in my documents, we've talked about creating a My Inventor file and then an Inventor Training File folder, in which case this will be activity 5.2.b. And they called it what? A structural angle. So after extruding this to our distance here of 1.5, we're going to use the fillet feature. Earlier you saw us use a fillet tool on a sketch. Within a sketch, you saw that there's a fillet, part of a sketch feature where you can come in and fillet the two-dimensional sketch. That fillet tool is based on or requires a sketch, where you also have right here a fillet feature, which can be applied to an edge where two faces come together. Okay, so we're going to apply this fillet to two outside edges and one inside edge. Note that the fillet feature applied to an outside corner is called a round, and applied to an inside is called a fillet. We're going to change the radius of the fillet to be 1/4 inch, 0.25. So be sure to change that. And we're going to select this edge, and this one, and hit the green check for OK. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and make some modifications. I know following this activity, they might have us save this as one file name and create another one, but let's just keep this and modify it. Next, we're going to move on to the chamfer tool. It says to edit the part created in this last exercise to modify the edge treatments. The outside corners will be changed to chamfers. This one right here, and this one right here. In the fillet radius, the inside is called the fillet. We're going to change the radius. We're going to edit the feature. Okay, so we've got the file open. We can come over here to fillet. I can right click and say Edit Feature. Now, there are 3 fillets, and I want to edit 2 of them currently. I'm going to hold down the Control key, and then I'm going to move until I can highlight the edge that had been picked for that feature. So this edge right here, and this one right here. Hit the green check, and they've been deleted. Okay, next we're going to use the chamfer tool to come back and apply a chamfer to those 2 edges. So right here, it may be fillet or chamfer, whichever one. You can hit the drop down to choose the other. We're going to use the chamfer tool. And there are different choices here in this dialog box. You can use a fixed distance. Automatically, if these 2 distances are the same, it's going to be a 45-degree angle. We can more specifically choose what distance we want to be and which angle. Or you can just choose 2 distances, vertical and horizontal. Okay, for the top one, we're going to use distance and angle. You have to select a face, and that face is going to be the reference for your angle. So when you say I'm 45 degrees, it's 45 degrees from this face. And then we choose an edge. And then from that edge, how far back do we want to cut? Okay, and it's we'll stick with that 0.125 is an 1/8 of an inch. You can edit that, you can change it if you want to see that. You'll get a preview of what it's going to look like. But we'll go ahead and stick with that for this one. Hit apply, and we'll close that. Let's choose the chamfer tool again. Okay, next we're going to chamfer this edge right here, and we're going to do it based on 2 distances. If you choose the third option here, from this edge that we select, you have 2 distances here or here that you can modify, and you can play around with them to see what's going on. Try typing in some different distances, but the first one you'll notice is a vertical distance from that edge that we selected. So basically imagine creating a parallel line on that front face, this distance down, and then on this horizontal face, this distance back from the edge, and then we're cutting with a plane from those 2 lines to create this fillet. So we want you to apply a fillet that is vertically 0.25 inches down, and horizontally on that face 0.375, which is 3/8 of an inch back. Okay, last we're going to edit this inside fillet. And if I left click on a feature, I can then get this little dialog where just hovering over it, it tells me what it is. If you're ever curious what something is in Inventor, remember just put your mouse over it and pause for a second, and generally you'll get a pop-up showing you. So I want to edit that feature. I'm going to click on that, and it re-brings up the dialog box for that feature, this interior fillet. And we're going to change the inside of this to be, what did they want us to do, to just an 1/8 of an inch instead of a quarter, so 0.125. Say OK, and now it's smoother. So right now you've just seen how to create a fillet, a round, a chamfer, how to edit those features. Now we want you to go back to your passenger section of the Automo blocks and make a couple edits. Now if everybody had a chance, we only have 1 Automo blocks in the room, so everybody might not have a chance to come look at it that closely. But if you look at it very closely, I think what you'll notice is that there's a chamfer right here, and you can see I've added it later. It's very, very subtle, but they have knocked off the corner, so it's not a very sharp corner along the outside faces here, or edges, where the blocks come together. And if you look at it from the side to look at a profile, it doesn't appear to be round. It doesn't appear to be a round or fillet. It appears to be about a 45-degree cut. So I've applied, you can see, it's a very, very slight chamfer. Also, If you look at the little grooves that were cut down the side, we had created rectangles that we didn't extrude cut. But when you look at them up close, this top interior corner doesn't actually appear to be a square. It appears to be a fillet, where this one appears more square. So I've applied a fillet to this edge, and I applied a fillet feature, so I did it after having created the sketch. So go back into your Automoblocks passenger section, and let's apply a chamfer on both sides. I've done it on both the front and the back. Okay, so this face, and if you rotate around, and the back face, I've applied, zoom in, you can see. And in most of these cases, I applied a very, very small feature, like a 0.01 inch. But go ahead and play around with it. You want it to be there. If you zoom in, you want to be able to see that it exists. But you don't want it to be drastic, because if you pick up the real part and get a chance to look at it, you'll see that it's a very subtle feature.